Okay, the staff and what we think of when we talk about to our staff about the marketing opportunities. This goes for our staff, this goes for our doctors. What a lot of the staff and the doctors think of is that, yes, you've hired me to work, and if the work is there, then I'm going to go ahead and do it. What I think we forget about is it's also our jobs to make sure that we have work continuing to come in. So we're doing a good job to where clients would want to come back into our hospital. But more so, really part of their responsibility and part of their job description is to solicit us new business. And so I think sometimes the staff and especially our doctors forget about that that's their role, that if the appointment book is empty, that they're just going to go sit at their desk and do nothing. And it's kind of we have to change that thinking a little bit. Where it starts as a number one marketing tool, and this is funny, I was having the staff take some pictures for this presentation, and this is a picture of actually putting lipstick on the doctor, and you can't see it too well, but the dog has this crazy look on its face, like what in the heck's going on? But anyway, I think your ability to believe in services and fees is going to make you very successful at marketing, because when you're marketing, you're dealing with your clients or potential clients. And so I want to spend some time a little bit talking about how to believe in your fee system, the structure, and how to get your other staff members and your team members to believe in them. We were having a talk up here, and it's kind of scary for us sometimes in the wages that some of our staff members are making, or some of you are making on an hourly wage. It's not where we want to see it, at least from a practice management point. I want to see it much, much more. But sometimes we don't believe in the fees that we charge, or we're not willing to increase those fees because we think clients won't pay for them. And so when we have that type of attitude, it definitely comes across to our client, and we're not doing the job of marketing that we need to be doing. This was Consumer Reports. This came back, I think, out in, was it 2000? I was thinking it was 2001, 2002. We thought this was going to be the end of us. We thought that when this came out, if nobody saw this Consumer Reports, it basically talked to people about how to get the cheapest vet care out there. It had some great suggestions, such as if your dog gets hit by a car, rather than take them to your veterinarian, maybe call around and get some pricing structure first. Well, So anyway, we all were concerned when this article came out, and we found, it really didn't affect us very much at all. Believing in your fees and your services, when in doubt, raise your price. The bitterness of poor quality remains long after the sweetness of a low price is forgotten. So veterinary medicine, why is it we do it? Why are we all here? Why are we in the jobs in the industry that we do it? When I ask this, there's 6 million. Do you realize in the United States there's 6 million other small businesses that we could be working for, but yet we stay in the veterinary industry. We do it for the love of, I'm going through some hiring right now as we get ready for our second facility. And, I always hear that, why do you want to work for us? Well, because I love animals, And yes, we all do love animals, but as you guys know, we deal with the clients so much more usually than we deal with the pets. We love the clients, the variety, as opposed to maybe human medicine where you're very focused in on, let's say, dental care. Chiropractics, you guys were in the veterinary industry, we're dealing with all different types of variety. The atmosphere, the continuing education, we're all here in Kansas City, the human-pet bond that takes on the staff, and some people would never work on humans. I can tell you, just in my interviews, I talked to, one of the questions that I voiced to them is, does, vomiting, diarrhea, pus, mites, does any of that bother you? And a lot of times they'll say, well, if it was on a human, it would really bother me, but, on pets, it's not a big deal, so. Then we had veterinary economics. This came back out in 2004, and it talked about the changing status of the pets. So you had, a couple slides ago, you had the Consumer Reports coming out and saying, trying to tell clients how to go the cheapest way possible. And then you have VetEcon coming out and saying, you know what, they're really not that interested in how much it's going to cost. They're interested that this is a family member and how they can make that happen. And that's the point of this presentation, is how do we make that happen? We have to understand that in the new millennium, since 2000 or so, that the new client, the pet is a family member, as we talked about. Technology, they want us to be reinvesting in technology, and we need you out there marketing that, talking to them, educating them about the different, we'll call them toys for us, but the different toys that you have in your hospital. It's an informational highway. Do you know how many people want more information and want to be knowledgeable? We now have clients that bring in sometimes bundles of paper that they've printed off on the internet and said, what do you think about this? So it's your job to find those websites. It's your job to educate the clients or find them additional information on where they can go with the informational highway. Specialist in litigation in the new millennium. What are clients expecting now? They want their pets to live longer. we want our pets to be pain-free. The clients want to be educated, and they want their senior pets acting as if they were puppies. They don't want to see them in pain. They want the cures for, or they want the management for arthritis. Our two main emotions, we need to understand what our emotions are when we have clients that come into your practice. As you try to educate them, as you try to get them to stay in your hospital, we have to understand what it is they're doing. And what we've done is we've done a lot of surveying and focus groups trying to understand what it is our particular clients are needing. And what we come up with is two main emotions that arise, is hope and fear. And what was interesting is we kind of did a staff meeting beforehand, and we really kind of asked the staff, what is it you think that is going to come from all of this? And a lot of them was, how much is this going to cost me? And we found out that the money really didn't come up when we spoke with the clients, that the words hope and fear really came out. There were phrases like, I hope, the dog doesn't bite the doctor. I hope that my dog or my child doesn't embarrass me while I'm in there. I fear that you're going to tell me something's wrong with my pet. I fear that I'm going to do this blood work and you're going to say my dog has cancer. I fear you're going to say, something's wrong. And so as we start to understand what it is that our clients and our customers are thinking, we start to understand the two main emotions that they're feeling. We now know as a marketer, and I use marketer and educator together, I think they're pretty much the same, we know what our job is. And our job as a pet health team member, as everyone's job here, is to instill hope and alleviate fear, knowing that anticipation is a terrible thing. I have a sister that's going through some kind of pre-cancer issues. And some of the tests that she's having take 3 or 4 weeks to come back. I mean, just watching a family member have to sit there for 3 or 4 weeks waiting to find out what way her life is going to go is really scary. So as a healthcare member, we have to instill that hope. We have to let them know that that's okay. We have to know that they're scared about being embarrassed sometimes if their dog has an accident or the dog tries to bite the doctor. So we know why we're in the industry. And we could all go through everybody's own story. We know the Millennium Client. We have it. We just can't seem to properly charge for it. This is a huge issue. So Pogo said it best, we have found the enemy and he is us. Oftentimes it's the staff that is literally the fee increase and not the owners of the business. So I once worked with a client, or it was a client of mine, but a veterinary hospital, and the worst excuse for no fee increase is that it would make prices uneven. They were worried about that. In other words, toenail trim, let's say it was $12, and they were worried that if we raised it 5%, that it no longer would be an even amount. And then the other thing that I saw in their practice was one of their staff members going to present an estimate, which I was happy about. It wasn't the doctor. But she says, you better sit down for this one, Mrs. Harrison. I mean, so there's somebody that doesn't believe in the fee structure. And as your number one job is to instill the hope and the fear, and she's all worried about the money. Again, I think I do some teaching at Yakima Valley Community College. This is back in 2005. I'll never forget this. I try to make it as real life as possible, and so this is second-year technicians that I'm working with. And what I do is I work with them on kind of how they're going to do estimates and work on the computers and their client communication skills. And so we were working on dental estimates that day, and so I took a couple dental estimates off my computer at work, real estimates, and made photocopies, and we were going to use real estimates, right? So I get them all passed out, and they just all started laughing, and I'm getting ready up there, and I'm thinking, geez, are my pants ripped? What's going on, right? And they thought I just made fictitious numbers up. The estimate was, I don't know, $350 to $550 or something like that. And these are professionals that are going to be our licensed veterinary technicians coming out of school. This was back in 2005. That thought it was unheard of to charge, $250, $350 for a dental. They thought it was a joke. And that scares me. That scares me as a practice manager when I look at staff every day that don't have health insurance because they can't afford it. That's scary to me, and it doesn't have to be that way. 30% of veterinary hospitals make 70% of the income. I love to tell people to look in the back of veterinary economics. Sometimes, and this has changed a little bit since I put this slide together, but you'll have a hard time finding clinics that are making over $500,000 to $700,000. It says the gross of, the practices for sale. It says, gross is $500,000 or $700,000. We wonder why they're selling them, because they're not profitable. They're not willing to charge for what they're worth. They're not, and their staff doesn't believe in that. Because of it, they're fed up. I've seen doctors go on, get out of the industry, sell their practice because they're not happy. And it doesn't need to be that way. We're just scared. We get scared sometimes. We have found it could be worse. The Salesforce industry has a hard time too. 94% of Salesforce, and this is, I think this was out of the Harvard Business Review, if I recall. 94% of sales won't even mention price until asked. So let's say we're out, looking for a cash for clunkers, and we want to know how much the car is. Only 6% of the time is anyone ever going to say, I can get you in this car today for, $18,000. They're not going to even mention price until it's asked. 44% of sales would change the subject when asked about the price. So, you say, how much is this going to cost me? And all of a sudden on the car, they start, showing you other features. And 33% wouldn't say the price, but would write it down and point. Now, I don't know about where they get these statistics, but anyway, that was what the article had said. When we're being competitive, we'll go back to business a little bit. When we're trying to be competitive, we have to look at one of these 5 to really reach out to. Price, quality, service, advertising, promotion, salesmanship, or delivery. Okay? So obviously we're focusing on price. Price makes a new statement. I've got my new Lexus is for sale. Yeah, I got one for $12,000 and I have one for $120,000. If I said to you right now, if I said I got a Lexus out in the parking lot, you don't even have to take the bus back to your hotel. I'm going to give you the keys to my car. All I want is $12,000 for this gorgeous Lexus. What would you think? Is there something wrong with it? Now, if I said, that bus, it stinks. I don't know who smells on the bus, but I'm going to give you my Lexus. You can buy it from me right now. This is the most incredible Lexus. It's a little spendy, $120,000, but I'm telling you, it's going to be the car of your life. What would you think about $120,000 Lexus?
Well, there's probably nothing wrong with it, but that's still pricey.
Okay, so it's a bit pricey to her, but there's probably nothing wrong with it. What does someone else think? If I told you I had a $120,000 Lexus for sale. It's what? It's a nice car. Price makes a statement. It makes a statement. If they're on the phone to the client and we say we have a spay and neuter for $99, it's a special going on, or they call me and I'm telling them $400, they're thinking the same thing as you were just thinking about the Lexus. What's wrong with it? And if they're not, I want them to be thinking about that. I need my staff thinking that way. People believe you when you say you're cheaper in every sense, price, quality, and value. And the same is going to be true for the obvious, obviously. Let's put it in human terms. These are your eyes now we're talking about. We're having LASIK surgery. It's something I've been thinking about looking into. I've got Clinic 1 that's at $1,895. I've got another one at $2,800. Who would you go to? It makes a statement. We're so worried that we're going to be the most expensive in town. We're so worried that the economic times and we can't raise our prices. Oh, sorry. I should be asking, why is Clinic 1 so cheap? What is it they're doing? Do they not calibrate their machines? What is going on? We'll use your in-house lab work. I like to use this one for the students. With the new, I'm using IDEX, the new laser sight and the new chemistry analyzer, it's around $50,000 kind of to be set up. So, if you think about it, we have, $50,000 in equipment that we have to purchase to throw it on our shelves. You've got money to rent that space, that square footage in your hospital. You've got money for reagents, money for maintenance repairs, or if you're on a monthly maintenance agreement. You have money to rerun lab samples because for whatever reason you got a bad sample and it's saying it's about, and you have doctors that don't like about, they want exact numbers, right? You got money to obtain samples. Someone has to draw the blood, the tech time. You as doctors, you have 8 years plus of school that you've invested into to read those labs. You've got training of the support staff to convey to the client what it is they're getting done. And you have immediate results. You have labs in 15 minutes. All of a sudden, $110 doesn't really seem like that much money to run a CBC and Chem in-house. So if you have staff or you have people in your clinic that are having a hard time with fees, or they're conveying them to the client, you can see you have somebody like what I talked about Leah was her name actually. And Leah said to them, you better sit down, Mrs. Harrison. I want you to be thinking about these things, or I want you to be talking about some of these stories. That if they truly understand where our price structures comes, we're going to be much better off. Purdue University, we were talking here, he's going to be attending the Veterinary Management Institute that's wonderful through Purdue. And actually, when I went through it, they'd actually just finished up a study that they did on their own at Purdue, and they did 3,000 random pet owner calls. The first question was, are you a pet owner? And if they said yes, then they asked them the second question, which was on a scale of 0 to 5, where do you rank your veterinarian's fees? 5 being the best deal ever. I mean, they're undercharged, and that's where they're at. Where do you think that out of 3,000 people, what number do you think came up? 2? It was 4.4. So we were almost at 4.5 to 5. 5 being the best deal ever, and they came up with 4.4. And I don't want you to take from this just, I need to go back and, I'm going to raise my prices 20%. I mean, there's so many different things to look at. But truly, you guys deal with clients on an everyday basis, and you truly have to believe in your fee structure if you're going to be successful in marketing your hospital. We need to be at a 2. You guys mentioned 2. That's where we need to be at. We need to be at more of a 2 to 2.5. I want to talk about clients that you're going to be dealing with. There's 2 types of clients that we kind of identify. We identify a quality-conscious client. We identify a fee-conscious client. I was speaking with somebody during the break a couple hours ago, and they were saying that they were in a mixed animal practice. And obviously, veterinary medicine's come quite a ways in the last 10 to 15 to even 20 years. Yet we still have some of those farmers, and I'm not picking on the farmers, but some of those guys that, they're used to an office call being $10 and you give the vet a cup of coffee. And as they've kind of progressed over the years, they're having a hard time transitioning some of those people. And so this is exactly who I'm talking about when I talk about quality-conscious versus fee-conscious clients. Well, let's define them. Fee-conscious clients, they cause the most stress to the practice. When I do interviews, sometimes I'll have employees from other veterinary hospitals come interview with us. And some of the times one of them is I make them role play a client complaint, and usually they'll give me a specific example. And it's amazing to me because I feel like we're on the higher side of the charges for our community. And it's funny to me is because the clinics that they're coming from I see as kind of the lowest cost clinics, and yet they talk about how many problems that they have with clients saying that they're getting charged too much money. They're dealing with more clients arguing about fees than I am, and I'm charging almost double. It causes the most stress. They see you once a year if you're lucky. They fight over each invoice item. I know there couldn't be another hospital in here that's ever had a client get out a calculator and start adding up things, trying to figure out where that money came from, right? They're not appreciative. They're always feeling ripped off. They will bond to the practice. They will not bond to the practice. So as soon as they find a better deal or they find somewhere cheaper, they're going to jump ship. Just this week, I had a tail docking. I'm sorry. I say just this week. This is probably 3 years ago. Time flies, right? So basically, the client came in. They did the tail docking with us. They normally don't use our services. They use a hospital down the street. For whatever reason, they couldn't get in. The tail docking had to happen right away, right? So we're doing kind of a recheck, and the doctor's working on the mom. And certainly the client's upset, or not upset, but concerned because it's scratching at his ear. So our doctor said, I'd be really concerned. We looked in the ear. We really wanted to do a cytology and then prescribe possibly do a culture and sensitivity and then prescribe the correct antibiotics, And his response was, there's no way in hell I'm paying for that. Normally the doctor just smells the ear and then gives me something. And that's fine. That's not the type of medicine that we want to practice, but that's definitely going to be a fee-conscious client. And what I'm saying, for the majority of practices that you guys are dealing with, these are not the type of clients that we generally want. These are just kind of for fun. I don't suggest you tell these to clients, but the feel, felt, found clothes. I understand how you feel. They're talking about price being too expensive. Others have felt the same way. However, they found that the treatment they received was well worth the price. Why do you think so many others buy our services at that price? This one, I like the condition lost clothes. Sure, we may have lost a few patients because of our price, but we never lost a patient because they were dissatisfied with our work. You get what you pay for. Our quality-conscious clients, they usually follow a doctor's recommendations. We're seeing these usually 3 to 4 visits per year. They bond to the practice. They're telling everybody about us. They're appreciative of our services, and they perceive value in our service. So these are the type of clients that I want, because your job as marketers, your job is to get these clients in. It's going to be much easier if you're dealing with a quality-conscious client that you've connected with and that appreciate you. Don't be afraid to flaunt what you have to offer. Show them what you have. Show them what you got. Talking about this really isn't geared towards marketing examples per se, but one thing that we've done is we used to have a brochure that was called Experience the Difference. And the whole brochure, all it did was showed every difference about our veterinary hospital versus basically what was out there in the community. And it had little blips talking about how every radiograph was sent to a board-certified radiologist. It talked about the blood work that we do before surgery. This was several years ago, but it really was flaunting our differences. And so you as marketers, you as the team members of your hospital, you have to flaunt those differences. That's one of your big jobs, is to tell these clients what's different about your hospital. Why do you stick out? What makes you different? So reality is your client's perception. Some of you heard me talk about that we completely bombed with our senior wellness package several years ago. So how are we doing? And so what we do is we do a lot of surveys. And so I just briefly, some of you might want to take on, doing some surveying and kind of talking with your clients and finding out how you are doing. I'm not going to go into great description over all of these, but the types that we're using, we do some mail surveys, we do some focus groups, we do some telephone interviews, and we do some in-clinic questionnaires. And I'll give you some examples. But the written surveys that we do quite a bit, we have the client take them home. So we're trying to get them to be anonymous. We find that anytime we do surveys in the hospital, a lot of times they're not always being as honest as we would like them to be, because the receptionist is standing there, and I don't know if you've ever had this happen. Have you ever had anybody say, how was our client service today? And they're like, somebody might be calling you, and it's like, what are you going to say to the person that just asked you that? No, I hated you. You did a terrible job. I mean, no matter what, I'm just like, yeah, it was fine, whatever, and that's what I think happens if we do in clinics. So we have the client take them home. Our compliance rate on these surveys is crazy when we send home a prepaid envelope, a pre-posted envelope, as opposed to in the past, sometimes we've just sent them home with an envelope and they've got to pay for postage, and then we're like around 1 to 3%. But for whatever reason, it's easier if the postage is on there. And number two, I think they're scared if they just throw it away, they're wasting money. So for whatever reason, we've been much more successful. We love that they're anonymous, and we also include a thank you gift, a gift certificate. These are little treats. They run us about $1 a package. And what we do is when we kind of have the survey as a package deal, it has the envelope with the stamp on it, the actual survey itself, and then it has a little gift certificate. And so it just says on your next visit, bring this in, and we're giving them, a product. It does a couple things for us, and here's an example of how much one of the dogs that went home liked it, went crazy for it. But it does a couple things. Number one, it's thanking them for their time. Number two, it's encouraging them to come back into our hospital for another visit. And number three, if you have a new product or a new type of treat that you really want to try to promote, it's a great way to get clients going on the treat, because they're going to come back in and say, that free treat that I got, I want to buy some more. Two things. I'm going to talk. We look at the surveys that we wanted to get away from. Were on a scale of 1 to 10, how did we do today? Or did you have a good experience? We wanted much more specific questions. So I think you'll see that we've accomplished that. So I'm going to show you some questions from an experience survey. When I talk about an experience survey, it's kind of more of an outpatient wellness exam. So this is somebody coming in for a wellness exam and vaccines. Were you and your pet greeted and made to feel welcome by a Meadow Hills team member when you entered our facility? 97% said yes, 3% said no. This is after about 3 months worth of, so here's much more specific. Did we clearly explain the reasons for recommending a once-a-month dewormer for your pet? 87% said yes, 8% said no, and 5% didn't answer the question. So we really started hitting these surveys kind of hard when, all that compliance, it was like Hills and Pfizer, and they did all that compliance study, and they're saying, geez, 90% of clients want to hear a recommendation, and they're saying that only 4% of you guys are giving us a recommendation. So we're like, are these true numbers? Let's really take a look for ourselves. Is there anything we could have done to make your experience at Meadow Hills more enjoyable? Interesting. 16% said yes, 84% no. That's interesting. I have almost 1 out of 5 of my clients saying, yeah, there's something else you could have done to make it more enjoyable. We're going to come back to this. What was interesting, though, they noticed price and pressure noted in this category. So when they're saying, yeah, you could have made it more enjoyable, they were saying, you could have made it cheaper for me, or you could have, you just threw too much at me. Here's what's interesting. This is the question after it, though. Based on your experience today with Meadow Hills, would you recommend us to your friends and family? 98% said yes, 2% said no. Let's go back. So people were saying, yeah, you charge me less and I'll be happier. But at the same time, they're saying, yep, I'll send you my family and friends. So isn't that interesting? Did you find it easy? Okay, now we're switching over to an anesthetic survey, just some sample questions to throw out. Did you find it easy to schedule the procedure during a time that was convenient for you? 100% said yes, so we know we're offering plenty of options. Were you offered a tour of the surgery and treatment area? We talked about doing a perception tour is what I was referring to them as earlier. PET's procedure would take place. Almost 20% said no. So, at that point then I'm looking to my staff and I'm saying, wait a minute. As your job as a marketer, as your job to really play up our hospital and flaunt it is what we have, almost 1 in 5 clients here are telling me that they weren't even offered the option. Did you find our follow-up phone call 12 to 24 hours after the procedure useful? 95% said yes. These are the types of questions, this is a little off the subject, but these are the types of questions when I talked about making that connection with clients. These are the type of questions that you ask to find out, is it worth your time? All of us only have so many resources. We only have so many phone calls that we can make. And if what you're doing in your practice isn't important to the client, then quit it. Find something else that's going to be important and spend your time and your resources doing that. This was I felt one of the most interesting questions that we've asked. It says, looking back at your experience, what 3 services did you value the most from us? We listed out, I think, 10 here. The update phone calls, so, calling the client often to tell them how things are going. Home care instructions, check-in in a timely manner. Staff monitoring, treating your pet for pain. Having your pet look good and smell good at the time of discharge. Using advanced monitors, EKG, etc. Fees within the estimate range. Check out in a timely manner. One-on-one individual attention to your pet throughout the day. Or ease of scheduling the procedure. The reason that I love this is it was an education question to begin with. It was educating the clients is, number one, I was basically saying to them, do you realize everything we just did for your pet? Because we just did these 10 things for you. So all of a sudden the light bulb's going on in the client. Wow. Back to that perception of value. But what do you want to guess? Number 1, number 2, number 3? Number 1 was using advanced monitors. Number 2 was staff monitoring or treating for pain. And number 3 was one-on-one and individualized attention. For those of you that were back was it last hour or the hour before that, we talked about customer intimacy, making everybody feel like their pet was the only one that mattered. And here we are, the clients are saying out of those 10, that was number 3 on my list. What's great about gathering this information? I can now focus my marketing efforts. I can now focus to my staff. I can say, you know what, the clients are telling us this is what's most important to them. So you as my marketing, you as my educators, I want you really to focus. When we do our perception tours, I want you to talk about that one-on-one care. I want you to talk about the pain medications and how we have an overnight attendant and they're going to take care of your pet if they're in any kind of pain. So rather than going home and telling your staff and saying, look, we just need to do a better job on marketing. Now if I get some information, I can say, you know what, what's important to the client is this, and that's what we really need to play up when we talk with our clients. So let your staff hear the feedback when you do the surveys. Also let clients know changes. If you're going to make any changes, this is a big thing in surveys. Never ask a question that you're not willing to change if the answer comes back, even if it comes back not the way you wanted. In other words, don't ask clients, would you like us to open up on Sundays? And, you get 75% say, yeah, that would be great. And you're like, oh, yeah, whatever. We're not going to do that. Let's not put it on the question. Let's not put it on the survey. So how are we doing? Now we know. Now we know if we're making that perceptional that connection. Practices, interesting, back into surveys, practices that solicit regular feedback are 5 to 10% more profitable than those who don't. Great thought. It is unwise to pay too much, but it is worse to pay too little. When you pay too much, you lose a little money, that's all. When you pay a little, you sometimes lose everything because the thing you bought was incapable of doing the thing you bought it to do. The common law of business balance prohibits paying a little and getting a lot. It can't be done. Fee concerns versus fee complaints. Let me describe a fee concern. A fee concern, and your receptionist will all be able to tell you how many you get a day. But a fee concern comes up to them, and they walk in and they say, geez, this is more than my own dentist. Or they'll say, Billy's not going to be able to go to college now after this bill. And they'll say, which brick in this building has my name on it? Right? Yeah, we all hear them. So that is a fee concern. That is basically your client letting you know they felt today's visit a little bit, and that's normal. It's going to happen no matter where you're at. It's going to happen in other businesses. It's going to happen at other veterinary clinics. A fee complaint is, if you guys heard me talking about I had a client that we received an estimate for $300 to $400 last week, And then they received a second estimate from 400 to 500. And it was misconstrued that the second estimate was the new estimate as opposed to adding 1 and 2 together. Does that make sense? So what I had was a staff member trying to give 2 different estimates, saying that in addition to the 300 to 400, you now have a $400 to $500 estimate. The client took it as 400 to 500 total. So the client came in ready to pay, $400 to $500, and the bill was $800 or $900, and that was a client complaint. That was the client upset. That was the client you have to put in an exam room to calm her down. That was the client that we completely miscommunicated. When we have client complaints, fee complaints like that, I consider those on our shoulders. Somehow we have to take the responsibility. I'm not saying that you just deduct the bill. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying we have to look at our systems and our staff education because somewhere we miscommunicated with that client. Fee concerns are normal. I expect fee concerns. So then when you talk to your staff or your receptionist out there, you're probably like, well, every client says something like that. Well, that's probably not true. My receptionist said, that happens 8 out of 10 times, Brian. I said, really? I said, we do 2,000 invoices a month. So you're telling me, that 1,600 to 1,800 of these clients are saying, they're saying a fee concern like that? And so that's what we did. For 1 or 2 weeks, we had them, every time they heard a comment like that, we had them make a little notch so we could count them. So we took all the fee concerns for the month, and then we divided them out by the number of invoices that they did and came up with a percentage. Where we want to be is we want to be at 20%. We want 1 in 5 clients making a fee concern. If you don't have 1 in 5, if you only have 0.25 out of 5 coming in, it's time to really look at our fee structure because we don't have enough client concerns. So this is interesting. We're back to this. Is there anything we could have done to make your experience at Meadow Hills today more enjoyable? Almost 1 in 5 said yes, noting price and pressure. So there you go. There's almost my 1 in 5 clients that are saying, yeah, you could do something better. Because if you remember, all of them were saying, yeah, I'll send all my family and friends, but almost 20% was telling me, lower your fees, and that's normal. So that was a good thing. Yay, it's good. And fee concerns are normal, and we'd rather be on vacation, we'd rather be at a casino, gambling, alcohol, tobacco, we're spending billions. We'd rather spend our money there than at your veterinary hospital. If any of you are, head techs or team leaders or doctors, I can't, seeing is believing. When you're asking these people to be that educator to a client, they really have to, see what is involved. And so I will tell you what we do with we have a phase training program, and one of the things on the phase training program, I'll take my receptionist, is she has three services that she has to observe being actually completed. Because generally that's not her job. Generally she's not going to deal with the spay or neuter in the surgery area, right? She's not going to be, polishing teeth on a dental. So we actually have a form of 15 to 20 questions that she has to answer, and we schedule a time where she sits with a tech, she watches a spay or neuter, she watches a dental, and she watches a wellness exam. And then she has to answer those 15 or 20 questions. Why do we have to use general anesthesia for a dental? Simple questions, but questions that she needs to understand. Why do we use laser for our surgeries? Why do we use sevoflurane? Why do we require pre-anesthetic blood work? Because she's going to be dealing face-to-face with those clients, and she's expected to know, and she's expected to, and if I can get her to see this and really understand it, it's going to portray back to my client base. And the role playing. I talked last hour about that during the tough economy, we really wanted to be consistent about the message that we were sending to our clients. And so I don't have a staff member that says, oh, please let me role play. But they come out of there going, this has been good. We spent a lot of time talking about estimates the first hour, but again, this is the vital tool of communication, especially during this time, and they should sound very crisp and educated. The first hour of the afternoon, we listened to a phone recording, and in the phone recording, it was a phone shopper, and you could hear my new staff member. You could hear her on the phone. She was very unsure of herself. She wasn't, and so that portrayed to the client. That she's not sure about it, and if she's unsure about it, I, as a client, am certainly unsure. There's a question. Did you have a question in the back? Okay. Yeah. Yep. So the question is on role playing, do we do one-on-one or do we do kind of a smaller group? And we actually do both. I think for some of the more important things, we do more on a one-on-one. Where I do the group role playing, one of the things, it's great. We all do lunch and learns, right? You guys have your reps come in and do a big, staff meeting. What I find, I think that's great, and I do them. But what I find more effective is rather than doing that, is having that rep take 5 of my staff members that are on the same level out to lunch or out to coffee and working with those 5 people, as opposed to, if I have 10 staff members or 15 staff members and giving this, joint presentation. So what I do is over the course of a year, I'll say, okay, in December, I want you to meet with my brand new staff, and talk about, start from the basics. If it's my pet nutrition rep, they talk about A through Z. What are the prescriptions A through Z? What is that? And then for, let's say, my senior techs that have been with the company for 10 or more years, maybe they're going to be in February or March, where I do a training and role playing that's, much more advanced. And so in those instances, we do group training. Anesthetic options, taking the path of least resistance. The path of least resistance it's very hard. We sometimes will do this with overweight pets. And I have some good friends down in Phoenix, Arizona, and they have 2 boxers. And those boxers are definitely overweight, okay? But they're the type of people that you don't tell them that they have overweight people, or overweight pets. They just, they think their pets are perfect, and God forbid that we were to ever say anything, correct? So for their veterinarian, every visit, they'd come in, they'd say, everything looks perfect, that's great. So this is 5 years worth of hearing that. Year 6, they have a new associate to that practice, and that happens to be who sees their pets. And the first thing he says is, we really want to probably start working on this weight issue with your pets. And they just were totally blown away. What, the doctor for 5 years has never said anything. You're crazy. And so that doctor of 5 years was taking the path of least resistance. He probably could, he could, feel, or whatever the case may be, that, it'll be easier if I don't even talk about this with the clients. And so for 5 years, their pets, went untreated, if you will. And then year 6, then they wouldn't do anything about it because they didn't believe the doctor. And that's what we do with taking the path of least resistance. And we did that back in 2001. And hopefully you guys can laugh at this, because I said let's focus on our failures. When you came in for a spay or neuter, I would ask you, would you like pre-anesthetic blood work? Would you like IV catheter and fluids? Would you like us to use sevoflurane or isoflurane? We were asking our clients which anesthetic they would like us to use. Laser or scalpel blade, and pain medications. So can you, and we were back in 2001, it was scary. We were thinking, gosh, if we just make all this mandatory, if this is just the way we do our medicine, all of our clients are going to leave us, and it's not going to be a good thing. And so little by little, we said, let's just start making this part of the way we practice medicine. And so all of a sudden, we just use sevoflurane, all of a sudden we just use laser, pain medications is included. And as I'm including these things, of course, my price is correlating with it, right? So where are we at? So, 8 years later, we've almost doubled the number of surgeries we're doing. And the surgeries are 2 to 3 times more expensive than the base surgery price that we used to have 8 years ago. And what we were hearing from clients is a couple different things. Clients were asking us, why are you making this an option for me? I come to you because I want the best for my pet. Why are you, I'm confused. And then we were having the discussion, too, is that when you offer something that's premium or optimal and the client decides not to do it, they still go away with a lot of sentiment that they're not doing everything for their pet. And then we've lost some clients. Back then, we lost some clients over that because they felt like they weren't. We were looking down upon them because they weren't doing everything for their pets. So avoid that. Pre-anesthetic blood work, again, back to our communication with our clients. When we made pre-anesthetic blood work, we actually had a client that they came in to drop off their pet. They learned that they needed to do blood work, and they ended up walking out of the clinic with their pet and scheduling it somewhere. One of the things that we do anytime we lose a client, anytime we're asked to fax records or a client says they're leaving, we're on the phone to them within 24 to 48 hours. And we're not saying, why in the hell are you leaving this practice? We're perfect. We're saying to them, I know you just came in for a procedure and then you decided not to have it. Were there any concerns that I could help out with? Or if they came in for an exam and I saw that they were with Dr. Thorson, I might say, I saw you were in for an exam with Dr. Thorson 2 or 3 days ago, and then you're having your records faxed. Is there something that did we not answer all your questions? And then usually if I can get past that, they'll open up to me. And so by the time so this client just left because she just thought we were trying to make more money off the blood work. And I was able to spend, 2 minutes with her, educating her on why we wanted to do the blood work. And her comment, if they just would have said that to me, I would have been fine. And she ended up rescheduling the procedure with us and coming in. But sometimes we forget, our staff, our receptionists, our support staff, doctors, we forget to educate the clients and tell them why it's so important and explain that. And we're losing clients because of it.
So you don't make that, you would make that an option. We're not saying they have bad news. But for us, there is no option when we have a client come in for a you're getting confused at lower regard to the price.
Right.
Just,
Yep.
There is a different choice there.
Yeah.
So we can get rid of that.
Correct. And that's what I'm saying is in 2001, all of these were options for us. In 2009, none of these are options. It's all built in. Yeah, absolutely. But I'm just saying, this is 10 years worth of work. And sometimes, I can sum it up in an hour, and it's like, who the hell did this guy think he is, And it's not. It takes time. And so what I'm saying is this took us, 5 years to make all those, I hate the word mandatory, but mandatory, just built in. So, I'm not here to say you need to go back and just, do a blanket switch. Your wages, the staff has to understand that the wage is tied to your fees. I have dental assistants in my community making $20+ an hour, with less education maybe than some of my staff has, that are making $12 to $14 an hour. We have to understand as an industry, we have that as a competition, and there's no reason that our assistant shouldn't be making near what a dental assistant is making. But I'm also a realist, and at the end of the day, I have to keep the business afloat. So I see it from the ownership view. I'm not an owner, but I see it from the ownership view, and I see it from the staff view. And there's just certain things that we have to change to get to where we want to be. There's nothing wrong with making money and that's something you enjoy. And I think that's the theme sometimes is that we say, this is really what I want to do, so I'm willing to take a pay cut because of it. Did you have a question?
Yes, I did. It was about the capacity blood testing. Do you guys do the CBC and the chemical inventory?
Yeah, the question is, do we do a CBC in chemistry for pre-anesthetic blood testing? We do a CBC, Chem 6, and electrolytes is our standard. Okay, so I know you don't know my whole history, but before I took on business management, I was actually a technician in an emergency clinic. And I was working on Christmas, this was Christmas Eve, back in 1997. And this is truly when I started to grasp that it's okay to charge for what we do. This was Christmas Eve. I obviously was giving up my time away from my family and friends to actually be at work. We got a call. It was a hit by car. It was around 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And this big, it wasn't a Newfie, but it was a larger dog like that. And so in comes the dog, and, we have all this training and all the medicine and all the, everything to take care of this dog. But, of course, we got to go over an estimate with the clients. And in come, it was mom, dad, and then 3 kids. And they all come in, and this is their baby. And finances were tough for them. And as an employee, I'm sitting there going, it's Christmas Eve. I'm choking back the tears because I see the whole family crying. And, this is all they want for Christmas, basically. So, right away I'm thinking, geez, we should just discount it or something. It's Christmas Eve for crying out loud, And so I went and presented the estimate, and they said, we're going to find a way to make this happen. I watched all 3 of the kids go out to the car. They came in with their cards and presents, and they opened them up. They'd just been at Grandma and Grandpa's house, and they knew they were getting money for Christmas. So they opened them up, and they put the money down. And at this point, I'm like getting my wallet out ready to put money in too, right? But I didn't, because you know what? I had spent 3 or 4 years at a trauma in Milwaukee at a really big emergency clinic training for this so that I could, place central lines and do all the different things that needed to be done. I was giving up time for my family. So I see the emotional difference, but at that same time, I understand, I deserve to be paid well for what I did that night. And we deserve everything that you guys do and the compassion and sometimes the long hours and the clients that are all over you because they're upset and they have those 2 main emotions that we talked about, of fear and I can't remember what's my second emotion? See, you guys are listening to me. Thank you. Charge what you're worth. In fact, charge more than you're worth, and you'll become worth what you charge. I think the product sales, too, we're very service-driven. We don't focus in a lot of product sales. But we do have the belief, though, that if we're going to make a recommendation for a product, that we should carry that product. And what we're concerned about is if we say, they need to be on this certain food or this certain medication, what we're concerned about is that they're going to end up in a box store, they're going to end up on the internet, and they're not going to get what we want to recommend. And so we do quite a bit of education with products and product knowledge for our staff to make sure that doesn't happen. It's scary for us to think of an 18 or 19-year-old kid in one of those stores that's making a suggestion of what type of food that they want. We talked last hour that we have 4 generations, a very unique time in the United States to have 4 different generations that are clients or customers. We talked about the matures, the baby boomers, the Generation Xers, and the Generation Ys. So those are kind of the 4 that we have to deal with. I kind of do a whole hour talk just talking about this because I really think that we really need to be focusing on, in the next 5 to 10 years, about how we're truly going to capture our Generation Y. It's a very unique set of clientele. But with this, I want to talk a little bit about our matures that are basically born 09 to 45. These are known as the generation of savers. They lived during World War II and the Great Depression. So what I want you to do is marketers and educators is understand a little bit of the differences between the dynamics of the clientele that you're seeing right now in your hospital, because they're very vast in difference. Now it's not black and white. I can't say, you're a mature, you were born in this date, so I need to treat you exactly this way. But through your communication style and through what they're telling you, you'll be able to adapt. Frugality on luxuries. I mean, again, I grew up in a time where there was very little, and the unemployment rate was hopefully something we'll never see. Happiness, relaxation, and comfort are more important than preserving youth. So these people are okay getting older, and technology is overwhelming. So if I have somebody born, in this generation or so, and I'm really excited because we now have our new client forms are all being done on the website, that's going to be a little overwhelming for them. So we need to pay attention as marketers and educators. We need to pay attention to that. Our baby boomers are our largest group of Americans, and this is the bread and butter of your clientele right now. They're a generation of dreamers. If you think about Woodstock, they're adventurer and explorer. There's that word adventure again. And they want to leave with that story. They live to work. It's a creative outlet and adventure. Retirement, not giving up. Some of these people, especially with what our stock market's done, are going to have to work several more years. And technology is a resource. They're not scared of it per se, but they're certainly not using technology like what we would see our wires doing. The Generation Xers, 30% come from divorced families. So these people is when they're very era mergers, acquisitions, and corporate downsizing. So growing up in the late 70s and early 80s, when the divorce rate was what it was, and then you had all these corporations that were doing some different things, they grew up very leery. So when you go into them and you say you need to do this, this, and this for your pet, they're the type of people that are going to back away and say, "Wait a minute, I don't feel there to be stability." They work to live, not live to work. They crave a feeling of connection. So these are the people that we're really going to try to make they're, I don't want to say good old boys, but they're some of the people that we're going to really make sure that they feel like they're part of the practice. Relations are highly valued, and technology is as a convenience. And then our generation are up and coming. They're entering adulthood right now. There are dreamers and entitlers. The problem is it's very hard to keep them in one place. They like to skip around. And so as I talked about some of our issues that we'll have to deal with in the next 5 to 10 years is how to get them to stay loyal to a hospital. Very health and image conscious, hoppers at college and workplace. So not only do I see them hard as clients, but also as employees of getting them to stay working for me. Easily bored, live and work by their passions, and technology is a connector. I mean, this is the way of life for them. So as I start to think about maybe starting to do some texting to my clients, as I start to think about what I can do more on my, with my emails and internet and blogging, this is who I'm starting to think about. And maybe I don't make all those changes today, but I need to be thinking about them down the road. Okay, so now what? So technology for our older generation, this is something, if we're doing you got to gently introduce some of these items. So, maybe you take them on your tour. When you do a tour with them, you start, showing them how you do the sterilization and start meeting some of the staff members. But probably not the group to, explain the light differences or the blood-brain barrier on how the antibiotic that you're recommending is. Very clear messages and allow time for questions. These people grew up in a time where the government kind of dictated how they were going to get through the Great Depression, so they're kind of used to people telling them what and how things need to happen. So taking that approach, matures are intensely brand loyal. That's what's so great about these guys, is once they find somewhere that they're happy with, that's the end of it. They're there to stay, so that's great. So, but allow time for questions. You need to, let some of that information digest. Okay, so now we're moving again to our baby boomers, and we want to, as much as possible, use the stories and illustrations and educational tools. Avoid using the senior term. This is something interesting. If we can use, we found that they don't like the thought of getting old, and so if you're reflecting the dog's age, and saying you have a senior pet, they kind of sometimes translate that into themselves, and that can make them very angry. And I can tell you that this happened with my mom as a client. And she came in, and we were talking about a senior wellness package, and she looked right at me and she said, "Max is not a senior." And Max was a little Bijan per se, but like, Max is 14 years old, but that's okay. Give them a sense of individuality in the practice, and I won't harp on this anymore, but that's, again, where we talked about everybody being treated separately. Make them feel special, more personal prefaces. So we're really working hard on our computer system to note preferences. We offer some beverages, so if they always grab water, we try to note those in the computer. Or if they have kids that are in games, we try to note that and give them an experience that they can take away. As far as our Xers go, they want to be in control and understand. Again, they're going to be very leery. And so these are not the type of people that you go in there and you say, this is exactly what's going to happen, and this is what you need to do. You need to offer them, you need to let them make that decision, and you need to offer up the educational tools that I've talked about as marketers, but ultimately they need to make the decision. Finding a balance of they want that personal touch. So overall, and again, this is not black and white. Some of you might be saying, well, that's me, and I don't care about personal touch. I just want you to email me. I don't want to talk to somebody. But overall, the general consensus is that they want kind of a mixture of technology and that personal touch. So they still appreciate that phone call. They're really not the type of people that like calling in and hearing press 1 for this and press 2 for that. Prefer phone calls over emails and simple, honest, direct messages. So again, these guys are the leery ones, and so they don't want to hear a bunch of shenanigans and feel like you're placing sales on them. Okay, and then for our whys, don't instruct but help steer. So again, you don't want to, if you're driving a car, this is not somebody you would want to just push over and then take the steering wheel from them. But at the same time, what you want to do is kind of hold the map open for them and show them the different roads, and then let them get there. And that's what's going to be really important. And this is our youngest group. And generally, for me, I looked at it, and this only makes up about 7% of my clientele. So very young, but we're still, like I said, starting to get prepared. Email, text messaging, websites are very useful and ignore them. I mean, they just assume that. Play up health and appearance and the well-being of their pets. So these are some of the people that when we start talking about even orthodontics for pets, it's some of this younger group that we are even talking to because they're very conscious of the looks of their pets. And we don't do orthodontics. Just I'll put a side note. We don't do orthodontics. It's an example, but big word on the mouth is buzz. They like being on the end of knowing things. And so anytime we get a new product or we have samples, this is the group that we're really trying to push that on because we kind of tell them, it's something brand new. Really, nobody really knows about it. Give it a shot. Let us know how you think. There are 4 generations. Okay, real quick, because we're just going to finish up. We got 4 or 5 minutes, and this will take 2 or 3. This is a lesson remembered, but we are surrounded by incredible wineries. That's a big fan. I enjoy collecting wine and tasting wine. And so in Walla Walla, which is about 60 miles from where I live, it's just saturated with really cool wineries, and they have some very nice restaurants. But it was with some friends. And we decided they had a hot dog stand in downtown Walla Walla, which was really unusual. And we're not from a big city, so it's not like New York where there's hot dog vendors all the time. So from the movie Pretty Woman, we copped a squat, with a group of us and had hot dogs. Someone watched the movie. And hot dogs. And so we're sitting there eating our hot dogs and our beverages. And this woman came up to me and she said, hello. And I said, hello. And it was kind of odd, and she said, my name is Virginia Peacock. She said it kind of like Forrest Gump. It was kind of like a Virginia Peacock. Well, I said, well, hi, Virginia, I'm Brian. It's good to meet you. She goes, I sell paintings. I go, you do? And she goes, yes. And so she opened up, and she had kind of a portfolio and all these different paintings. And I flipped through them, and some of them were black and white, and some of them were color. And I came to this one, and it it was very happy to me. And so I said, Virginia, how much for this one? And she said, well, Brian, that's full color, so that's $5, and she flipped it over and showed it to me. And I said, okay. And I was like out of money. I'm running to the car. I'm like asking friends, give me money, And so I bought it. And, Virginia, she had found a strength, and the true story about Virginia is that, yes, she was a 50-year-old woman, but she was at the age equivalency IQ of probably a 6 or 7-year-old. And she had found a real talent in her life, which was her paintings and a way to make money. And I bought this and I took it to my office, and I found this quote a couple weeks later, and it said, "We are continuously faced by great opportunities, brilliantly disguised as insoluble problems." And so I immediately had that mounted with that, and I had Virginia sign that for me. And what's been really cool is I've told that Virginia, while she had faced some adversity, she found a way to make things work in the world for her. And so I hope you take that story of Virginia back with you, and you take that quote back with you, because that's what happens. We leave these lectures and we leave these conferences, and we have a lot of fun things that are exciting to try, and we get back and boom, we hit a couple roadblocks. And I just hope you think of Virginia, and you think of her of not giving up, and you continue that path. And I've told this story now for 3 or 4 years, and someday I hope to run into Virginia again and tell her that she's known around the country. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and thank you very much.